Hello again, everyone. Jack Powers here with another episode of Infamous Federal Prisoners. And I want to talk about this former FBI agent who was a double agent who spied for the Soviet and Russian intelligence services. And I think some people might know him. His name is Robert Philip Hassen, Hanssen, and he was employed by the FBI, and his job duties were to conduct surveillance and counterintelligence against Russia, or regarding Russia. One of their, I think, main job duties of enforcement is to conduct this counter-espionage. I think that's got to be the highest thing, the highest priority on their list. They've got their hands full with a lot of other stuff, but when it gets to that level, you're talking about a whole different can of worms. You're talking about an entirely different kind of criminal activity, if you want to even call it that. I mean, it's beyond criminal because historically, any kind of betrayal of American secrets, particularly military secrets or any kind of intelligence type secrets, historically, it rises to another level altogether. And it's pretty serious business. I mean, because you're talking about national security. You're talking about, okay, if our known enemies obtain certain information, because, it's just like the prison gangs or the mafia or whatever. If you break it down, you really want to know what your competition or what your enemies are up to. You want to kind of try to keep close tabs on them, because if they're planning something against you, then yeah, you want to be aware of it before they know you're aware of it, right? So that you can take some kind of countermeasures. And I mean, this is just the way things go, and it happens at the highest levels of government, mainly with intelligence, what they call intelligence services. So a certain elite section of the FBI deals with counterintelligence. And I can only imagine the kind of operations they have going on. I mean, people could figure that out pretty much for themselves. I mean, it probably isn't exactly like Hollywood would depict it, with a Tom Cruise and a Mission Impossible or whatever, but there's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of context. There's a lot of information, a lot of analysis of information. And when you have people who are in charge of certain information, who know that information is valuable and want to, for whatever reasons, ideological or financial or otherwise, they just want to sell out, it's a problem. That's a big problem. So Robert Hassen was convicted of espionage, and the Justice Department considers his crime possibly, quote, the worst intelligence disaster in U.S. history. And Hassen is currently serving 15 consecutive life sentences without parole. Every life sentence in the feds is without parole. Goes without saying. And he's at ADX. Supermax in Florence, Colorado, where I spent nearly 13 years. I've seen Robert Hansen. I've spoken to Robert Hansen on 2 occasions, and we didn't talk. The second occasion that we talked was on the outside rec yard when we were both in C unit, and he happened to go out. He usually doesn't go out. Usually just stays in his cell, and I can only speculate as to what kind of life he's living right now, and what kind of, I don't know. People that do certain things, they can't really have regret, because if they have guilt, i.e. regret, about what they've done, they can't possibly have any kind of peace of mind. So they put that out of their mind. They put regret, guilt, remorse, whatever, this is my own theory, completely away from them, completely out of their mind. They don't even really think about it in those terms. It's just black and white. Okay, I did this, so what? Let's move on to the next thing. But here you had, I think, a lot of very sensitive information that was being given over to Russian intelligence services, the GBI, GSU. They were, they're all the time. These 2 intelligence agencies, it's like that Mad magazine about, the guy was with the pointed hat. One of them wears a black one, one of them wears a white one, and they're always trying to get at each other somehow. But it's it's incredible that somebody would give up information that they know is going to be used against their own country, that's going to result in the deaths of certain sources. He gave them lists of names. He sold thousands of classified documents to the KGB that detailed U.S. strategies in the event of nuclear war, developments in military weapons technologies, and aspects of U.S. counterintelligence program. In other words, he sold out the store. He gave them everything he had. Now, why did he have that information in the first place is what my question would be. Why would that information need to be in the hands of Robert Hansen? Why? Why would it need to be in the hands of any FBI agent? What? Why? How? So, his espionage acts began in 1985 and continued until 1991, when he broke off communications during the collapse of the Soviet Union. He feared exposure, because when you're doing stuff like that, man, you're walking on thin ice, and you know it. And once your system starts to break down and kind of goes off the tracks, yeah, you're like, your ass is hanging out there, right? So I think that's what he started feeling. And then, of course, when you start getting that feeling, you start making mistakes, and because of the change in your perception, and because of what you've already done, and because of the fact that you really don't have any way to countermand what you've already done. So Robert Hansen was spying for Russia at the same time Aldrich Ames of the CIA was spying for Russia. And they compromised a lot of information. And a lot of people were executed behind those betrayals. Hassen was also revealed a multi-million-dollar eavesdropping tunnel built by the FBI under the Soviet embassy. So, I mean, these guys go to the nth degree to get information. All kinds of technology that's aimed at the embassies and the consuls and connections and women that they train to, for years and put them in place to try to get on the inside and gather up little tidbits of information. I mean, the FBI paid $7 million to a KGB agent. See, that's how it goes, right? The KGB agent knew about Hassen, knew there was a mole in the U.S. FBI. So he turns around and says to the FBI, I'll sell you that information. I'll tell you who it is, and I'll tell you everything about him if you pay me $7 million. So the FBI paid him, and he gave up Hassen. Sold Hassen for $7 million. So Hassen was arrested on February 18th, 2001, near his home in Washington, D.C., after leaving a package of classified materials at a dead drop site. Dead drop is just where you go to a park or something and you leave a newspaper, or, it's somewhere a little bit obscure where people walk by, and maybe you drop some trash in a trash can, and the next person comes by and they look like they're dropping trash, but they really pick out this can that has the documents in there or some kind of other thing. It's called a dead drop. You drop it and leave it. Somebody else comes, you never see them, they pick it up, and it's gone. They leave whatever they have. So they gave him about $1.5 million in cash and diamonds over a 22-year period. This guy didn't just jump up and start doing it. He did it for a long time. And they wanted to kill him. They wanted to give him the death penalty. So he pled guilty to 14 counts, 1 count of conspiracy, and was given 15 consecutive life sentences. Now you have to wonder, how did a guy like Robert Hassen go wrong like that? I mean, he became an FBI agent in 1976, and he worked in the Gary, Indiana field office. He had a wife and 3 children. Eventually, he had 3 more children. He moved to New York City and took up a position there, and then he was moved into counterintelligence and given the task of compiling a database of Soviet intelligence for the FBI. In other words, they just gave him carte blanche. Told him, okay, go ahead and just build this thing. Build a database. Get us whatever information you can. Here's some funding. Here's everything you need as far as resources. Do this. So, I mean, there was another informant. His name was Dmitry Polyakov, a CIA informant who passed enormous amounts of information to the U.S. intelligence while rising in the ranks of general in the Soviet army. Hassen gave him up. What do you think happened to Polyakov, General Polyakov? I'll tell you what happened to him. He was sitting in his office. He was probably reviewing some paperwork, signing some documents, maybe smoking a cigar. When all of a sudden, here comes GRU. Probably a gang of them right into the office. General, stand up, put your hands behind you, you're under arrest. What? Huh? General, stand up, put your hands behind you. You're under arrest. You're going with us right now. I can only imagine. I mean, think about it. They take him somewhere to some abandoned building, right? Maybe a meat plant or something. Hooks of meat hanging on the walls, and they've got him tied down, strapped down to a steel chair in the middle of the floor. And there's a door right in front of him, one of those big, like, ice locker doors, right? And they're just standing there, watching him, looking at him. And all of a sudden that door opens, and guess who comes in? Yeah, the big guy, the little guy. Putin, Vladimir Putin comes through that door in he's got his coat off and his shirt on, and he starts rolling up his sleeves. Yeah, you know that it's going to be a very bad day. This is the time, I'm telling you, this is the time when the fake molar, you pop the fake molar with your tongue and chow down on that cyanide pill. Or in these days, you'd probably take an overdose of fentanyl or whatever. Cyanide's kind of rough. Maybe fentanyl would be a little bit easier going out. But yeah, obviously he had no such contingencies, and it's not about to take his own life. He'll just die at ADX. They'll never let him go. But yeah, he did some real damage to the country and to the FBI, to the U.S. government, and there's no way to put any kind of a real tag on that as far as, what happened and why. I mean, I don't know if he's ever really explained. He never explained to me anything about it. I mean, he really didn't even want to talk about what he was in there for, whatever. I knew who he was, and I knew what he was in there for, but, it's all just a game anyway. It's this one doing this to this one, and that one doing this to this one, and in the end, I think it's just a waste of time and effort. You got to have some, I guess, surveillance or watchfulness, but too much just puts you in the mix and allows for these things to happen. So buy my books, please subscribe, hit that subscribe button, share this with others, share this with whomever you know, and get them to watch. And if you can, buy a copy of my book, ADX Supermax, the Alcatraz of the Rockies, or American Justice, or Lock and Key, or Pacing the Cage, or the manual program. I appreciate you. Namaste. Our time is done for today. We'll pick up with another exciting episode next time. Stay tuned.